We begin with a Daiichi 1167. This happens to be a size 14. The bead is a 1.5 millimeter tungsten bead in gold. I like these also in the black nickel. Thread I'm using is 17-aught uni tricot thread in white, because it only comes in white. You lash the thread down and bring it down deep into the bend of the hook. Now I've got 3 pieces of rust ostrich herl, because Callibaetis has 3 little paddles at the back end of it. But I'll only use 2 of them to create the gills on the side of the abdomen. Tie it in. Now I like the tails or paddles to be about the shank length, a little bit less on the shank, just depends. Now I've got some small D-rib in rust, and I've actually melted a little bit of a taper into it so I don't get too much buildup at the tie-in point. Now I'm going to tie off my thread here and leave this spool of thread at the back end, because I'm going to use that thread to trap the ostrich into the abdomen. I'm going to take another spool of the same kind of thread and tie it up at the front. I'm going to use it to tie off my D-rib after I have created the abdomen. Now I'm going to try to create a little bit of a taper. What's nice about this thread is it's got no buildup. So in this case, it takes it a little bit to build it up, but you still get a really nice thin profile, which is what I'm after. I'll bring the thread up and tie it off right where the thorax should be. It takes a little bit to get used to this 17-aught thread, because you're used to tying with 6-aught or 8-aught thread, so it'll break. But once you get the hang of it, it really works really well. And you'll see later in the video that I will actually split the thread and create a dubbing loop with 17-aught thread. So now I'm just wrapping the D-rib with concentric wraps. I've got a little bit of pressure on the D-rib to get that taper. Right about here, I'll start easing off the tension. I grab a pair of hackle pliers. I got Vienna sausages for fingers, and they just get in the way. Now I'm just going to tie it off. This is usually where it gets away from me, so I got to concentrate a little bit. You'll take note of these little nail clippers. They've got a convex shape to the blade, so they trim really tight. You got to be a little careful with them. Sometimes you'll cut your thread. I'll whip finish this, tie it off, and then trim my thread. And see how much room I'm leaving? That's going to give me a nice thin thorax. I'll still get a bump because of the legs that I've got to put underneath it. But I like starting off with a really thin profile. Now I'm going to take my ostrich and hold it to the sides of the abdomen and trap it. I won't try to go into every single one of those spaces in between each wrap of D-rib, but I'll get a lot of it. You'll find the first couple wraps are a little tough, but after a while it gets pretty easy. It's just a matter of pulling the ostrich up. I don't worry about trapping the fibers because even if it does trap it, it still leaves out enough of those barbules that it still looks like the cilia or gills on the side of this Callibaetis. I'm just working my way up. To the front of the hook. Now I'm going to trim away my excess ostrich herl along with that other stem that I didn't use. Actually, that stem is used sometimes because one of the ostrich herl stems will break, and so you have an extra one in place already. Now I've got a piece of medallion sheeting in mottled brown, and it's going to be used as my wing case. And it's about, I'd say, 3/16 of an inch in width. I've actually started making my own medallion sheeting. All I'm doing is using Swiss straw, a marker, and some spray mint or spray glue, and laminating myself. That's why I can get all kinds of colors. Now I take my 17-aught thread, I've taken a little spins, the twist out of it, and see how it flattens out there? It's just a matter of flattening it out and then just poking it. You can split that 17-aught thread pretty easily. And you don't need to do it exactly. It'll work just fine. I've taken a clip and I've got some Rust CDC trapped in there along with a half dozen light olive UV ice dub. And I'm spinning my thread to create that dubbing loop. Now I begin wrapping it and combing back the hairs as I wrap. You'll notice that most of the fibers I try to trap to the back portion of that, which makes sense. Now I'll take my medallion sheeting and pull it up over the top. As you can tell, I'm tying this in the Tarcher style of flies. The curved hook, along with this style of fly, makes it look like a scorpion, is what it does. Just great lines. Now I'm going to trim off my medallion sheeting and then tie off my thread. And I don't do too many wraps because I know I'm going to coat this with UV resin. Now here you can see some fibers are up over the top. And I try to trim as much of those as I possibly can, because when I put the UV resin on there, if there's any hairs in there, it goops it up and it doesn't give you a smooth finish. And even if you do your best, sometimes it'll do it anyway. I'm just taking a redwood marker and coloring that white thread. Once again, I'm just trying to brush those fibers back so they stay off of the wing case. Now this is Loon's UV resin. I like this stuff because it's self-leveling, meaning that when you drop it, it evens out. You can see there I've got a fiber out of place, and so I've got to trim it away. Now you'll see that I make sure I take my UV knot sense, my UV resin, and take it from the abdomen all the way into the bead, because the UV resin doesn't stick as well to the medallion sheeting. Still got a little bit of a hair in there. I'm going to hit it with my laser. If you look for a laser on eBay, look for one that's got at about 400 nanometers or 405 nanometers. That's what this laser is. And that's my CDC Callibaetis.